Welcome back. Joining us now is Nabilah Islam. She is a Georgian, and she is a former Democratic Party candidate to represent Georgia's 7th Congressional District. In August, Ms. Islam was chosen to head Muslim American PAC. Nabilah, thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to speak to you specifically because I've noticed that I don't really have candidates on my shows. But you ran for Congress and you didn't win, but you kept fighting, like almost immediately. You kept fighting for those same causes. And that's when I was like, you know what? Yeah, I love to see people who are not in it just for those victories, but they're in it for the fight. Would you just tell us about your race and the causes that you're fighting for?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thanks so much for having me on the show. And I am a fighter, and just because I lost doesn't mean I'm going to give up on my community. I ran for Congress last cycle, so from February 2019 through the pandemic, actually, until June 9th. So for 16 months, I ran in Georgia's 7th Congressional District. It's one of the most diverse districts in America, and it had been represented by Republicans for about my entire life. And it ended up being the only district in the entire country that flipped from a Republican to a Democratic seat. But when I did run for Congress, I ran on policies that were going to be transformational for my community. I ran without health care, and about 20% of my district doesn't have health care. As I mentioned, I live in one of the most diverse districts in America. We account for about 20% of people being detained in detention centers in the entire country because of archaic immigration laws. And it's been just tragic. This is a working class district. So I ran on Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage to at least $15, and, having more progressive immigration laws that would help our community. And at the time, no one else was running on these progressive policies, but towards the end, people started to see why we needed policies like that to actually uplift our community, especially when the pandemic happened and, tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. And because of that, they lost their health care. More folks really understood why these policies are needed, especially right now.
Yeah. And here in Georgia was so pivotal in 2020, not only for Joe Biden, but also for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock and for the Democratic Party in general, but the nation in general. A lot to be held accountable for in terms of what they're actually doing with the victory Georgia gave them. But in response, on the Republican side of the aisle, they've introduced numerous bills which would limit voting in many ways. And so it's their reaction to the organizing that happened on the ground, because truth be told, Georgia was won not on behalf of Joe Biden, not on behalf of Raphael Warnock or Jon Ossoff. It was won on behalf of the organizers on the ground, a community I know that you're a part of. But Republicans have seen that, and now they're trying to actively work against our ability to have a fair shot in this election system. Tell us about what you're seeing in Georgia in terms of the Republican backlash.
So when Republicans can't win on policies, they need to cheat in order to win. And it's really disgraceful. They know what they're doing. This is no longer dog whistle. Like, they are blatantly going out there. For example, my Gwinnett County chairwoman of the election board said out in the open that we need to do whatever we can to make sure that, these folks aren't voting, because we need to ensure Republican victories. I mean, that's disgusting. Now in the Georgia legislature, they're trying to get rid of no excuse absentee ballot voting. You need to have an ID, license number in order to request an absentee ballot. I mean, Republicans were the ones that implemented absentee ballot vote, no excuse absentee ballot voting 16 years ago. And because they had traditionally benefited them, and it wasn't until the pandemic hit that Democrats actually started to have the habit of voting via absentee ballot, whether it was the primary, the general, and then the runoff. And so, Republicans see the writing on the wall, and this is clear voter suppression. And we should be making it easier for people to exercise their constitutional right to vote, not harder. So it's disgusting. They're trying to get rid of illegal voting. Like, we didn't have any proof of that during any of the elections. And so, I mean, this is just, they're being lazy. Like, they're being complacent. Go actually try to win your voters. Go court them. And they're actually disenfranchising their own voters in order to like suppress our votes. So it's just really disappointing.
Now, Nabilah, I know you were running and you ran without health insurance, as you talked about, and you did petition the Federal Election Commission to use those funds to get health insurance. Could you tell us a little bit about that process?
So there are structural barriers, to run for higher level office, just office period, because you got to run full time in order to give your community the attention it deserves and be competitive, especially in these primaries that have, millionaires. And if you look at Congress today, over half of them are millionaires, and that doesn't reflect the economic diversity of America today. And so to get rid of at least one of the structural barriers, I did petition the FEC to have an opinion on allowing working class candidates to be able to pay for healthcare with their campaign funds. And so we put that together. It made a lot of noise because a lot of folks didn't understand like how bad this was for candidates that come from, middle class backgrounds, that working class backgrounds. That's why, we're not represented at the table. Because it's so hard for us to get there in the first place. You have to forego income in order to campaign, in order to give your community a voice, and not everyone has that luxury. So, I got an election attorney. We drafted a petition. I submitted it, but because I did not win my race, they kind of folded it. But that's not to say that I'm not picking that back up this year and trying to make it happen. So stay tuned because I think we're going to see some big changes come about.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's interesting that you say stay tuned because so you as a woman, you as a minority, you running in Georgia in a place that's usually red, right? How was that for you? What were the other struggles that you experienced? And you are a millennial as well. So how was that experience for you?
It was interesting. I mean, people are going to tell you got to wait your turn. Like I was 29 when I announced. My name is Nabilah Islam. I had people that I should change my name if I want to be more electable.
Wow.
I had people tell me that my progressive policies were not what Georgia wanted, even though it's what we clearly need. I was called a terrorist. I was told if I don't keep my tone down, they're going to put me in a camp. I was told that, they were going to deport me. Like, a lot of things come your way and people will deter you. I had people, elected officials call me up on the phone and be like, look, you seem like you have a promising career, but maybe you should run for state house and drop out now. This is after I raised like $200,000. And these were like, not people of color that were telling me this. I was like, this is a minority majority district and you're telling me to drop out when I'm the only one that grew up here. I was like, so like, I think a lot of those things, but I'm really glad I ran. For a possibility to exist, you have to create it. And, I told people all the time, my story is not unique. I'm the daughter of working class Bangladeshi immigrants. My mom broke her back by working at a warehouse for 14 years. She lifted boxes and put them on trucks. My dad was a file clerk for 30 years at the IRS. He filed papers. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. Candidates like me don't happen. And that's because of the rhetoric that I just told you about that surrounded me. But I'm really glad I ran because I got to tell a story that usually doesn't get told. And a lot of people saw themselves in my candidacy.
Yeah. And it's good. Your story is very important because I don't think you understand that you even sharing that. A lot of people are going to look at that, me, myself, and still want to push. Even after you lost, the fact that you want to push is something big. You understood that I'm going to get into this space and people are going to look at me like either I'm too young, I'm not qualified, I'm a terrorist, right? Because that's what the rhetoric that America has already built for people that look like you. And your name, change your name. You're not good enough, but you stood in that and you continue to run and you pushed the barriers and you made it uncomfortable for them. And that's what I love about your story. And it's good that you shared it because trust me, a lot of people are going to listen to this story and be like, yo, that's mine too. I feel that, or I can continue to, or step into these spaces and run myself. So thank you for that.
Nabilah, let me ask you, you said something in there that was pretty dope. You've been saying a whole lot of dope stuff, but you said for a possibility to exist, you have to create it. Could you just, forget politics for a second. Let's throw all that. Tell me about that thought and where did that come from?
I took a bunch of like life classes when I was young. So I did this thing called Landmark Forum actually when I was like 17 years old. But basically, it's really taught me that if you want to do something in your life, like no one's going to do it for you. You need to create that possibility yourself. And it's not going to exist unless you create it, unless you put it out in the world. Like there could have been, before I ran for office, there was someone that I respected that told me I shouldn't run. And I almost listened to him. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't do it. I'm really glad I did, because look what happened. Like I created this like powerful campaign. I'm petitioning the FEC right now.
Yeah.
I've been able to give my like a community a greater voice at the table. And I'm so glad that I did it. And also sharing is becoming. And because I shared my story, people felt like they saw themselves in me. And to this day, I have little girls that call me up, South Asian little girls, or just little girls, period. And they say, because you ran, I think I can do it too. And like,
Exactly.
I didn't win, but that to me, it felt like winning 100%.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. You're going to win this next one, right? You're going to win this next one because you haven't stopped. And you dropping gems. So we're going to help you win. We all enjoy it. We're going to help you win this next one. I want you to come back as often as you're able to come back and just keep dropping all of those gems that you just dropped, because we both just wrote down what you just said.
Listen, sharing is becoming, sweetie. I got that right here, because when we get off, it's going to be on Twitter. Okay.
Yep.
Listen,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. We took those classes, those life lessons, and we applied them. And I can definitely see that with you. And you are every little girl's dream. Even people that look like you and who are walking in your same walk, the girls who are in your same age group, women all across the world, people who feel like they can't make it, your story is necessary. And we're going to push you, girl.
Yeah.
We are going to push you, and we want you to win. And we put that in the atmosphere. Receive it, girl.
Do this one thing. Tell us, or tell the audience, one, how they can get up with you, and two, how they can participate in whatever you're organizing at this present moment.
Sure. You guys can follow me on Twitter. I'm pretty active there. It's Nabilah for GA07. I have a organization called Turnout Democrats that did extensive work during the primary runoff. And so we are relaunching our cycle plan for this year. So we'll let people know how you can get involved. And I'll be posting that on Twitter. But we're going to make sure that we stay focused in Georgia and make sure we reelect Warnock and get rid of Purdue, even though he's trying to come back, and hopefully elect a new governor, Stacey Abrams.
Absolutely. And as well as elect a new congressperson from the 7th District of Georgia by the name of Nabilah Islam. We're going to be working on that as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.